Hi everyone! Today's video is going to be all about state standards. So the title of our video is What are state standards? And at the end of this video, you will know what state standards are, you will know where to find them, and we will start talking about how you can use them in your lesson planning. Okay, so here's the big idea. Standards are the foundation for all learning. If you are new to lesson planning and you're thinking, I don't even know where to start, this is where you start. You start with your state standards. So what are they? State standards are the standards that are created either on a national level or a state level that are what students are expected to learn in reading, math, science, social studies. There are even art and PE standards, everything that they need to know in those subjects for each grade level. They are set by individual states. Some states use something called Common Core, which can be seen as a federal state standard, but it is up to the state which standards they use. And these standards build upon each other year over year. So what they need to learn in kindergarten is very much the base of how that standard evolves into first grade, into second grade, into third grade. So they start small and get big. Thinking gets deeper as students move through grade levels. So what are standards? They are literally what we say students will be able to do at the end of each grade level. So where to start? You always start with the standards, just like I said. You need to become familiar with your state standards. If you're going to be teaching in Arizona, you're going to be teaching in California, Texas, Washington, everywhere may have different state standards and they may call them different things. But you can always find out what the standards are for your state by going to your state's Department of Education website, and they will have them there for you. So I want to talk a little bit about Common Core. Common Core is kind of a buzzword that has come into the media in the last decade or so. So Common Core are what we can call national standards. So the National Department of Education worked along with states to create the Common Core. And the idea behind the Common Core is to really focus on depth of knowledge. So, like I stated before, they have core standards, which is why it's called the Common Core. They have core standards that are built upon each year. So students start with something small, like knowing what a main idea is. They can start small that way in first grade, and then in second grade, students will be able to identify the main idea in a paragraph on their own. And then in third grade, they'll be able to identify the main idea of a multi-paragraph text. And then in fourth grade, they can identify the main idea and two key details. So you have your core of main idea, and then each standard for each grade level kind of builds on that, and they increase the depth of knowledge and thinking that students do in regards to that standard. Another reason why these Common Core standards came about was because we used to have standards that were just, Arizona taught what Arizona wanted to teach, California taught what California wanted to teach. But in the newer ages of technology and transportation, one thing that was becoming very apparent was that you may have a student start second grade in California and then move in the middle of the year to Arizona. And then there's a large discrepancy of what that student was learning in California and what they're learning in Arizona and what may have been lost in that transition time. So for example, if a student was in third grade in California and they were learning how to subtract double-digit numbers, in Arizona, when they get there, maybe that's the standard that Arizona has just now started teaching students, or maybe they taught it to them in another grade level. So if they moved, there's a gap of understanding there. So here's an example kind of that core standard and how it builds. So you can see here with the key ideas and details in kindergarten, it says with prompting and support. So it's very much the teacher is still there as a resource. With prompting and support, ask and answer questions about key details in a text. That's the core standard starting in kindergarten. Then as they move to first grade, now they're asking answers about key details in a text, and you will notice that that with prompting and support is gone. So it's becoming more student focused now. And then if you move into second grade, now we have ask and answer questions such as who, what, where, when, why, and how. So which specific questions they're answering, and then to determine understanding of key details in a text. So it's very much the students asking these questions, these specific questions, to build their own understanding. So you can see as they move from grade level to grade level, these standards build upon one another. And this is an example of why it is so important for you to know what the standards are for your state. So if you are teaching first grade and you do not know that this is a standard that you have to teach, your students may get to second grade not having received this instruction from you, which means they're not ready to access those second grade standards, and that their teacher will kind of have to go back and teach them what you did not so that they're ready to do what they need to in second grade. So your students will thank you and your peers will thank you for teaching the standards that you need to teach. Here is a map showing which states do teach Common Core and which do not, and which kind of did their own thing. So if you're from Arizona, you'll know that we don't teach Common Core in Arizona. We teach the Arizona State Standards, but we're that little light blue color, which means reviewing and revising. So what Arizona did is they took what was provided as Common Core and they changed it a little bit to meet the needs of what they felt needed to happen in Arizona. An example of that would be cursive. So in Arizona, they have added in a standard in, I believe it's third or fourth grade, where students must learn how to write in cursive. That's not part of the Common Core. It's just an example of how Arizona kind of put their spin on the Common Core and created their own Arizona state standards. And then you can see, for example, in Texas, they're not using it at all. However, this is kind of an older map, and I do know that starting this fall, Texas they should be that light blue color now, where they are reviewing and revising the Common Core to kind of make their own little spin on things, just like Arizona did. Okay, so using standards for lessons, it's a 4-step process. So the first thing you need to know how to do is access your standards. You need to find them. So Arizona State Standards, like I said, they are derived from the Common Core, but they were created by our Arizona Department of Education, ADE. And they have those state-specific standards that I was talking about, and we call them the Arizona College and Career Readiness Standards, or CCRS. So here is the website where you can access the Arizona State Standards, and I will actually show it to you right now. This link will be posted in our announcements so that you can access it as well, because you will need to use the Arizona State Standards for your assignments coming up in this class. So here are our standards. You can see here that they're broken down. Let me make this just a little bit bigger. Okay, so you can find all of our standards here. So if I wanted to click on here into English Language Arts, which is the type of lesson you'll need to start thinking about for your Topic 2 assignment. So what you can see here is we have our anchor standards, which are just like those core standards I was talking about with the Common Core. There's also a glossary of terms, which can be very helpful for you as first-year teachers. And then you can see they're broken up into grade bands. So if I wanted to find a 4th grade language arts standard, I would click here, grades K through 5, and head on down to 4th grade. So I can find my standards in a PDF or a Word document, whatever is easiest for you. And they also have these placemats, which are 1-pagers of all the standards. They're very, very helpful. You can go ahead and print these off and put them in a binder, and you can see all of the standards for your grade level in language arts on one page, so it's easier for you to access. Also on this page, you will find the vertical articulation of standards. So when you click on it, you will be able to access a document that shows you how each standard builds upon itself. Very much like the Common Core example I showed you. So we have our anchor standard, read carefully to determine what the text says explicitly, and to make logical inferences from it. So that's what we want students to be able to do. What does that mean for kindergartners? That's the K here. So with prompting and support, ask and answer questions about key details in a text. And then you can see now moving up to first grade, what does that look like? In second grade, what does that look like? You may notice this looks a lot like the Common Core example that was provided to you. So remember, like I said, Arizona derived their standards from the Common Core, but kind of put their own spin on it. And then one other thing I wanted to show you here was our English language arts crosswalk. Each subject, math, science, they will give you these crosswalks where they will show you, if you're teaching a language arts standard, how could you also teach the standard in, let's say, social studies. So here, the standard for social studies would be here. The ELA standard it aligns with is here. And how could you do that? Well, you could use historical stories about children as citizens. This is going to be a great resource for you in another one of our discussion questions where you have to talk about what standard you're going to use for a topic 2 assignment and what other subject area or what other standard could you teach at the same time. This is a great option for you as well. So very important website. Please make sure you are using it as you work through our course together. Okay, so we know how to access them. The next thing you want to do as a teacher is you want to map your standards. So you want to say, okay, here's my long list of standards. When am I going to teach each of these? Your district, when you are teaching on your own, may provide you a curriculum map that you can use that says you are teaching main ideas and details in January and you are teaching nouns and verbs in February, and that's what you're doing. Or your school district may say, these are the standards, you are the teacher, you decide when you teach them. What I did in my first year teaching and all of the years after that, which was very effective, is I took that placemat document, printed it out, and I cut it up. So each standard was a strip, and then I got a big giant calendar, and I cut and pasted literally with glue onto my calendar and said for myself a visual of kind of piecing everything together of when I'm going to teach each standard. So I knew I was able to teach each standard by the end of the year, and that I was able to have time in my calendar to also go back. So if I was teaching main idea and details and I knew that the students, they got it enough that I could move on, but I wasn't confident enough to say you're ready to go to the next grade level with this, I would have a good month at the end of my calendar where I would cycle through some of those standards that they could use some more support on. So a map like that could look just like this. So this is a science example, but you can see here we have our first week of school. So she's not teaching any specific standards here. It's just routines and expectations. And then we can see at the end of August and then through the first half of September, she's teaching scientific inquiry. And these are the specific science standards that she's teaching in those weeks. This would be a great idea for you to do. This is a screenshot of something that you could buy on Teachers Pay Teachers. If you want to do that, that's okay. But it's always really good for you to kind of do this stuff on your own because you know your students and you know your school and the calendar and what will work best for them. But you can always use this as inspiration. Okay, and then the next part, so after you've accessed your standards and then you map out when you're going to teach them, you have to plan how you're going to teach them. That's the lesson part. We are going to go into that much more in our next video. I'm going to show you how to take a standard and break it down to understand what are students supposed to be able to do to make sure they have mastery of this standard. I'm going to show you how to create your lesson objective from that. And then we're going to talk about the different levels of thinking that students have in regards to the standards. All right, that was a really quick mini lesson all about state standards. Let me know if you have any questions.